So, understanding our belief systems is a great starting point for working with them. So, an example I want to share with you is I was in labor with my fourth baby, and my sister was there kind of like as my doula, and I was really close to delivering this beautiful uh, baby girl, and I was exhausted. It had been a long labor and I'd been really excited, and then I was going completely natural. So I felt everything. And I knew things were close. And yet, in that moment where there's so much evidence and so many feelings that it's hard, and that, well, for me, like it was painful. And, um, I don't remember exactly what I said to my sister, but her response was so profound. I shifted something and it made all the difference. And I was describing to her, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what's showing up for me. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm like, what do I do right now? Like, here, thankfully, I knew this was going to happen. I prepared for it with the right people around me, which that support system made all the difference. And she said something, and this is what she said. She said, if you weren't afraid of the pain, what would you allow to happen? And it was like, I just let the baby come out. And it was amazing because that question, the answer that came to me from that question was something that instantaneously had a shift, an impact in my life. And it was the meaning that it didn't have to be hard anymore. I wasn't even conscious of all the fears that I was having, but like somebody outside of me saw clearly what was going on inside of me, that, I was describing the symptoms, and she's like, well, here's the root. And the root cause of what you're going through, she knew, was fear. And fear caused resistance, which prevented progression and made the progression that would have been inevitable. But releasing that fear made it released the tension, and which ultimately did release a lot of pain and opened me up to give birth in a much more pleasant way. One that I just was able to, like, I was right at transition. I was about to give birth. And I think it made all the difference. And often right when we're so close to the finish line, it's like that temptation of like, am I going to make it? Birth is one of those things that you really want to make it to the finish line. And it's so important to keep the mindset there. The mindset, like, one thing that's incredible about like creating a baby inside of you, for those who are able, is you don't necessarily think about it every day. It just happens. And something like it starts to generate, just like subconsciously we plant a seed and we may not realize it, but something is growing from that. And you will harvest what you sow. So something else, a different experience that I really want to share that's, I think, really important when it comes to your growth and your healing, is when I started this journey, I started by going to this gentleman who had this technology where you would speak into a microphone and it would pick up the vibrations in your voice and literally give you a voice map in 12 different quadrants, broken up into 4 different sections that shows you how emotional you are, how intellectual you are being, like if you were in your head, if you were in your heart, like where you were operating from. And then we could connect it to our genetics or traumatic experiences. And the higher the percentage of these numbers in specific areas, a few were like limiting beliefs or repetitive thinking, things like this, that those were in the in your head section, right? And then like emotionally connected or disconnected or disassociating, there was specific names for each of these sections. And it was helpful to understand, okay, here's where you're at, here's how influenced you are by certain things in your life. And now we can go in there and we can start to heal those things. And he used specific things like magnets and creating vortexes, and it just like really unique technology that I don't know how well is widely known. However, when I found out about it, I was like, I think I need something like that in my life. And yet I knew I needed help, but I had this idea that like my chart was going to look perfect. And yes, it was a delusion. And so when I did it, he actually looked at my chart, and his reaction like kind of like surprised me and like kind of hit me wrong. Like my ego got in the way, and he's like, whoa, your numbers are so extreme. Like from 0 to 100%, my highest number was at 97%. He's like, these are the kind of numbers I see in like really old people that have like really rigid beliefs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm 14. Why aren't these numbers like really open? And then he looked at me, he's like, have you hit your head? I was like, well, that's like, how am I supposed to take that? And then I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, when I was 12 years old, I got in this car accident, and we rear-ended someone. We actually on our way to our family reunion, and we hit some relatives, and both cars got totaled. And I was in the back, behind the passenger seat, and I, like, from the impact, my body moved forward so hard that the passenger seat got bent. I passed out and was in the car, and just I hardly remember anything. I blacked out. The last thing I remember hearing was one of our family friends with us, and he's like, everybody get out of the car's gonna blow. And I just was out. Like I couldn't move. It's like my whole body relaxed, and I was gone. Just blanked out. And the next thing I remember is someone trying to pull me out of the car and like cradled me, and I ended up on the concrete sidewalk. And I can remember things a lot better now, but for a while I couldn't. And even though like I felt like I was okay, I didn't know what was wrong. Like my eyes were swollen shut. Like my face had been so impacted that I had 2 major black eyes. And my mom was concerned about me, and she's like, I think we better take you to the hospital. Well, they did a CAT scan to see for any skull fractures, but they didn't look for any brain concussions or miasms or anything like that. And what I learned in this session is that often when the brain gets impacted or experiences trauma, it actually solidifies our mind being less malleable, and it's harder to change the more impact your brain has had. So allowing your body to begin to soften, your mind soften, and those concussions and those miasms to heal, which happened over the period of the next 3.5 years working with him and that same technology. And it was shown in my voice remapping and through the scales and in my life experience and how I interacted. Like I no longer felt myself on repeat and like unable to feel. Like I literally at that time could hardly ever cry. I was so disconnected from my emotions, and doing this experience I was able to reconnect with my emotions and to feel and to process. And I became just so grateful when I could cry. And some people have the opposite experience. We're like, oh my goodness, I just wish I didn't cry so much. But be grateful. Like those are our ways to heal. Those are our ways to process. It's just like, you wouldn't be sad. You'd be sad if you couldn't. Okay, this might sound crass. You'd be sad if you couldn't go to the bathroom. But what if crying was just another form of necessary release? And it's healthy for the body. And there's a balance, obviously, with making sure hormones and other things are balanced so that it is healthy. But usually there's always a reason, and it's okay whatever those reasons are. So healing the body in all areas. One thing that happened from that experience and his reaction, I made up a story about myself, this belief, and it was a false belief, and it was that it's going to be harder for me to heal. that didn't have to be necessary for me to take that on, but I chose to. So no matter how many times you've hit your head or that you've experienced trauma, your healing can still be exponentially faster than mine. I literally assumed that, and that these were thoughts that he put into my head that I chose to believe, which in hindsight, I'm like, what if I just had chosen not to believe that? What if I still could have been an exceptional way of doing healing and done it that way? Because it's still possible and people do it. And I could choose into that now. And so my invitation for you is to consider, do you understand how you believe your healing process is going to happen? Do you have limiting beliefs that's determining what your healing process has to look like? Do you think it's going to take a long process? Are you constantly trying to seek for more answers and to continue your healing in a way that it seemingly feels like there is no end? Because I did get those points. I'm like, I've been doing this for so long. Like, does it ever end? Like, at what point do I get to experience the fruits of all my labor? Like, I'm working so hard for something, and what is that? And so what I'm really excited to share with you is understanding that you don't have to have that limiting belief. That yes, I went from taking 3 to 4 times longer to clear than the average people that I saw receiving the same treatment. And then over time, like, something happened and it clicked that I'm like, oh, something happened faster. And I held on to that belief, which is like, I'm going faster now. And all it was I can go faster now. Something that simple. So I want to invite you to take that belief on, that I can heal fast, that I can go through the process faster, that I choose how I want my process to look right now. So I am so excited to share with you in my next video a meditation to help you have exponential healing and growth, to overcome those limiting beliefs, to step directly in and on to your healing path. Love you.